Hello, and welcome to another edition of PentaLive, where we bring you the tools and techniques you need to survive and thrive in the COVID-19 era. I'm Peter Green in New York, where we are slowly getting back to normal, but as you can see, things aren't quite safe yet. Our guest today is coming to us from Miami, where things may be about to get a lot worse with COVID. His name is Gal McGreal. And Gal is an expert in what they call pay-per-click, and he's going to talk to us about how you can get your business online. We will be right back to you after a little bit more music. Gal, welcome to PentaLive. Thanks for joining us. Today, you're going to be talking to us about how ordinary brick and mortar businesses, even if they're not in the retail space, can get themselves online and go direct to consumer in some cases. And if you're already online, better ways of doing that. And this is a particularly valuable strategy in this COVID era where people have stopped going to brick and mortar stores. But before I get there, I want to just say one thing to our readers. As always, we are open for comments. Please put them in the chat alongside the interview, and our producer in France, Christelle Lozeau, will read them out. And we have a bonus offer for you. If you comment on or share this session live, you are eligible at the end of this show to be selected for a free half-hour's consultation with Gal. In fact, 2 people are going to be eligible for free half-hour consultations with Gal to learn everything their business will need to know in a half hour about pay-per-click. Anyway, Gal, that's a very long introduction. Thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely.
So tell me, you're known as the king of PPC. What is that, and how does that work?
Yeah, so thank you for the very modest title. PPC in general is just stands for pay-per-click. And pay-per-click refers to platforms like Google AdWords or Facebook ads or Pinterest ads and Instagram ads. Any model essentially where you get charged by the click of bringing a target user to your website is considered a PPC model. Now, there's differentiations between each one of these models, and each industry and each company needs to use a different type of platform to fit their needs. But in a gist, PPC, as opposed to organic, is a paid source of traffic where you deliver people who you believe will be the appropriate audience to your website.
So how does a business know, if this is the best way to go for them? I mean, there are all kinds of platforms to think about, whether you're on Facebook or SEO or Twitter or some other professional network. How do you get the expertise in-house to do it? And I'll just add one thing. I tried to do this once a few years ago, and we did not know what we were doing, and ended up, the whole business tanked because we didn't know how to do this PPC.
Right, and I think first of all, most of these PPC platforms kind of build themselves in a way where they push you more to spend money rather than see results. And that's why I think it's absolutely essential to have an expert come in and make sure they build it out for you so that there is no kind of bleeding, or that you don't have any people who unnecessarily show up to your website. When it comes down to these different platforms within PPC, I think we can segment this between the in-market platforms and kind of the passive user. So in-market or an active user would be someone who's on Google AdWords or on Bing Ads, who's going out of their way to search for something. And as a result, we usually know that they're a lot more inclined to make a purchase because they've gone out of their way to search for something. Usually when you're dealing with very straightforward products, especially in the e-commerce space, you want to focus on that platform, at least initially, because that's where your low-hanging fruit is. And then when you look at Facebook ads and Instagram ads or Pinterest ads, these are more display-based networks that are a lot more passive because you're targeting users based on interest and behaviors and demographics. So usually this is really good for, I'd say, ambiguous products, B2B products, things that people didn't explicitly know they need, but they might stumble upon it and say, all right, this is interesting, and I want to continue the conversation. I think for the during Corona, when we've seen a lot of fluctuations and a higher demand in e-commerce, we are seeing a bigger surge of e-commerce websites use platforms like AdWords and Bing Ads.
So if I'm, like I said, I'm a manufacturer. Do I need somebody in-house who understands this, or do I find a consultant like you or a firm that's specialized in this? And then, how much do I need to know about making this adjustment? How much do I need to know about my customers, or is there a learning curve here?
I think that's exactly it. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. First of all, you can always outsource this. You can hire a firm that specializes in this. I think that's a better way to go about this. These firms usually have better relationships with some of these PPC platforms like AdWords and Bing Ads. So there is kind of a preferential treatment to it, unfortunately, but that is the case. As far as what the business owner needs to know, or let's say a director of marketing within these companies or the manufacturer needs to know, it's not a whole lot, because there is a learning curve here. You're absolutely right, in the sense that you do run the ads. This is usually a 2 to 3 month process where we gather data. I mean, this whole thing is it's data driven. So you look at keywords that work, ad copies that work. So is there a proper language fit here? Is there times of day and days of week that work better for your business than others? So there really is about a 2 to 3 month process where we analyze the data, and the main goal is to have the highest return on ad spend possible. But this can only be done by running ads and analyzing the data and optimizing the account based on that.
So you're saying you wouldn't even see returns for the first couple of months, or measure significant returns?
I think it varies. I mean, at the end of the day, it's very important for people to also understand that PPC is just one part of it's just a cog in this big machine. At the end of the day, PPC does its job in delivering the right people, especially if you do it right. But we do rely on clients to have, a solid funnel, a good website, competitive pricing, a product that people want. I mean, there's only, it's not a silver bullet to any issue that a merchant may have, to a manufacturer may have, or an e-commerce store might have. But if it is a good product, especially if these are products that, if we see an e-commerce store that already has sales, absolutely, we usually see returns in the first month. But we do see optimal returns after 3 months, and a good agency and a good PPC manager should be looking to carry on improving those results month over month.
And is that because you're targeting the same person with multiple ads, or is it just you refine better who the user is and toss out the ones who don't click?
So it's because we don't target the same person. We target many different people initially, and we try to zero in on the right person to target. And if there is potential to see if there's maybe an offshoot of that person, maybe a similar type of profile of someone that we'd like to target, then we can carry on expanding and scaling up. So the idea is really initially to test out several different things, and then try to slowly zero in the one that works best from an ad copy perspective, from a targeting perspective, from a bid strategy perspective, and so on and so forth.
And I guess with all this, you don't have to necessarily have been in a retail or direct-to-consumer market. You can. I mean, you were talking to me when we first spoke about a client who makes hand sanitizer and had a whole wholesale distribution network, which kind of broke down with COVID and demand. Right. Boomed. So that just walk us through that example, because I think it was really interesting of how.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, you're absolutely right. Basically, throughout Corona, all these distribution channels were interrupted, and a lot of factories that have been manufacturing and producing things have tried to find a way to sell this directly to the consumer, and they found out that the best way to do that is to just open a website and to start running ads towards that website. It's a very quick pivot. It's a very easy pivot, especially for people who are manufacturing the stuff, because at the end of the day, they have a competitive edge with their pricing. They're producing the stuff directly and they sell it directly. So I think that working with those users, I mean, I definitely see a lot of opportunity, especially now during Corona, for a lot of these factories who feel like they don't know who to sell this to hire a PPC manager and to find someone who can actually deliver direct sales to consumers through PPC ads.
So are they, it's sort of a two-faceted question, are they cannibalizing their existing customer base by just bringing them, I would say you're a supermarket or something, maybe instead of a hand sanitizer maker? Are you sort of cannibalizing your existing customer base and bringing them in a different way? Or can you really grow something that would last beyond COVID? Even 2 years from now when people are shopping?
That's a really good question. I think, look, for the factories, that's a unique question, and honestly, especially as someone that's a PPC manager, and this is true for so many industries, we're in a time where we are really not sure what's going to happen and what we need to do. There's a lot of things that are pivoting and changing, and I think my short answer would be time will tell. But I will say that a lot of these factories may find long term that they can still sell to resellers, and they can also sell directly to consumer. There will be some, there will definitely need to be some conversation about who can advertise what and what pricing, agree on a map, for example, of what the pricing should be. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think they'd be stepping on each other's toes. I think long term they can sell both to the resellers and directly to consumers at the same time.
Now, another big issue is with all businesses is this issue of trust. Customers come into my retail store because they trust me to have, a decent selection of stuff, and what they buy is quality, and they're not going to have to return it or waste too much time. For the most part, they'll buy from my factory because they trust what I produce, and they're not going to get returns from their customers. How do you build that kind of trust when you're doing, when you're converting your marketing and your sales to online?
Hey, look, I think today, or organic content reviews do their job on their own. It's going to come to a point that if you have, and I hate to say this, if you have a shitty product, people are going to know about it pretty quickly on the internet. And that is something that we've never faced, but I know that there are clients that your prospects that you might face who'll say, hey, I'm paying all this ad money, I'm not seeing any sales. Well, it's because that when we're searching for your product, just below it, there's a 2-star or 1.5-star rating on the products that you're selling. And that makes our lives very, very difficult. And that comes into things that, personally, I don't manage, but you could deal with it through reputation management, improve your product, of course, provide some better value on these things. So we are the success of PPC is connected and extremely interdependent on the product being of quality.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because Christelle has 2 questions for you from our viewers.
Sure.
Madame?
Hey, Gal. Yes, I have 2 questions from the comment, and I'm inviting people again to comment on all social media and ask any question that you have in mind. The first question is there a minimum budget we should invest per month? And if yes, how much?
Yeah, so look, I think that there is a minimum budget because at the end of the day, and it varies on the industry, but we've come to find out that rule of thumb is that we need around $5,000 a month to spend initially to get an understanding of where things actually stand. The reason why we need that money is because we do need that ad spend to collect data and to carry on optimizing our ads. If we have a budget of about $1,000 a month, we simply don't have enough data collected to know what we need to do and how to optimize the campaigns further.
Yes, we can hear me now. Sorry, trying to set everything at the same time. Thank you for this answer. I have a second question. Is there a difference in ROI if you use video, GIF versus images?
So we know that from a social media perspective, when we run ads on Facebook ads and on Instagram ads, there's case studies show that there's a much higher potential when we run video ads, preferably 15 to 30 seconds, not too long, not too short. But there's clearly something about, an ad that's animated and moving that pushes people to engage with the ad copy a lot more than an actual image ad.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's it for my questions for now.
Yeah, let me follow up on that about the kind of content that works. People, advertisers, I know myself when I was doing this, we look at video and we think, oh my God, that is really expensive to produce a really high quality video. How, if you're starting out in this, how high quality do you have to be? What are some tips? What should you be doing in a video? How do you make it not look like something on QVC, or should you make it look like something on QVC?
Well, look, I think there is, there's something to be said about testimonials still do work. If you don't have the budget behind it, there's this beautiful thing now, this iPhone, for example, that I have, the camera quality is phenomenal. I even think that if you're really limited on budget, You can make your own video. Of course, we prefer someone who has a professionally produced video that has some budget behind it. But again, we prefer to run a video ad over a still image ad, even if that video is just a testimonial that doesn't look extremely professional, because at the end of the day, a moving ad is going to attract more people to engage with the ad copy. So it doesn't have to be extremely professional. We can always give direction on how to build kind of a, I don't want to call it a low budget, but let's say initially low budget video just to test things out. But again, it is absolutely imperative that the spend that we have initially is $5,000 for the ad spend itself.
And what about some of these gimmicks you see in a lot of the video ads that pop up on your various streams? You know, that whiteboard thing where the picture suddenly starts drawing itself all the way across, and you have a black pen on a whiteboard, or you know, the TikTok kind of thing with the phrases coming across the screen.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not. I can't say that we're opposed to it. And again, it's because it really varies and depends on what we're advertising here. It could very well be that stuff works, and that's the amazing thing about this PPC space and just digital advertising in general is a lot comes down to trial and error. We in many cases we come up to prospects and we say, look, we're not going to pretend to have the answers. And anyone who does is either dishonest or inexperienced in the space. Every product is different, customer behavior is different, and we will test out as much as necessary. Of course, we're subject matter experts when it comes to PPC, and we know what we should definitely throw out the window. We know what platforms we want to start with. But you know, when it comes down to how we target, how we bid, the type of messaging, and the way that the ad copy looks, like you're referring to, testing is what we try to capitalize on.
And what about brand safety? You know, that becomes a big thing these days. You know, what is your ad next to? You know, what is it? What kind of content is it displayed in?
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of sensitivities, and you don't want to be at the wrong end of something, or you just simply don't want to be associated with it.
Right. And there are mechanisms today on these PPC platforms to make sure that we avoid controversial topics, you know, anything that refers to violence, anything that might be on the extreme fringes of political opinions. You know, at the end of the day, these guys have to preserve their reputation, and we don't want their ads showing up in anything controversial.
So you've got tools that identify the type of content or restrict what you can be next to, or?
Absolutely. We have large exclusion lists that we can make, that we add into these campaigns to make sure that our ad copies don't show up on various websites that we know are controversial.
Interesting. Christelle has 2 more questions for you. Christelle?
Yes, I'm coming back on the budget subject. I have 2 follow-up questions. The first is, if I set my budget to 5K, will I spend all the budget even if it doesn't work?
So no, so the 5K budget, I mean, we try to distribute it evenly along the spend of the month, the 30-day period. However, it could very well be, and there are cases where we'll run these ads at a 5K budget. Let's see, what does that equate to? $175 a day. So if we come to find out that after spending $175 a day after 2 weeks, that the results are phenomenal, we usually do come, and that does happen. We come back to the client and say, hey, we know that you have a 5K budget. Can we up it for the remaining time of the week? Alternatively, we can also say, hey, look, it looks like the 5K is spending. We're not seeing fantastic results. We may slow it down a little bit, but we do want to kind of set expectations to the client. And I want to just emphasize one more thing. We really prefer to work, and we're in a situation where we can be selective with the clients that we work with. And I think that something that we try to avoid is having a client that stands next to us with a checklist and a stopwatch telling us, well, it's been a month. We're not seeing results. We're really pissed off. It doesn't work that way. Again, it's a 2 to 3 month learning process. There's a lot of ups and downs, and we really want to work with clients that give us the flexibility to do our job.
Yeah, so that means, again, just to repeat what you said, I can adjust my budget, either put more money or lower rates based on my results if I need to. It's really flexible.
Correct.
And I have one last question, sorry. Someone in LinkedIn is asking what resolution for video you use for professional ones, if you have any answer to that.
I mean, Yeah, if we can get a 4K video, that's ideal for us. If it's a 1080, we'll take a 1080, but the better quality, the better for us.
All right. Thank you.
But
Just
iPhone
sorry,
is
just
sufficient.
one more thing. Excuse
Yeah.
me. Just the there is no limitation. I'm assuming this question probably comes from the fact that some of these users think that the large video, there's a kind of limitation of how large of a file we can upload to these PPC platforms. The mere fact that we do recommend these videos to be between 15 to 30 seconds automatically means that even if it's a 4K video, the file size is not that big, so we can still work with it.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
So what about, you're here, you're trying to get your business online and get a new group of customers, and then out there is this huge 8 gazillion ton gorilla in the room called Amazon. And how do you, the story most of us hear is that Amazon just drives your prices down to the point that you have no margins, just so they can become the platform everyone wants to go to get the best price. But that may not be so great for your business, long term in particular. How do you juggle the juggernaut?
Well, look, I think that first of all, we work with Amazon ads. We run ads on Amazon, and there are e-commerce clients that tell us, hey, look, we make a significant amount of our money on Amazon. We'd like to just have our ads professionally made on Amazon. We're willing to kind of play the game and keep going, which is absolutely fine. Not everyone's ready to make a massive transition away from Amazon sales and move over to their own websites and get direct sales. There is some risk involved there, and that's up to the client to assess that risk. What we can say is, if you are interested in shifting away from Amazon, first of all, again, we can advertise on Amazon. If you do want to move away from it and you want to start advertising directly through AdWords or through Bing ads, yes, at the end of the day, we have to compete with Amazon. We try to do our best to tap into markets and users that Amazon does not dig too deep into. Keep in mind, Amazon is again, massive system, a lot of products. They don't dig deep enough to know your product that well, where they can start advertising on AdWords to be extremely, extremely granular. And they do a good job, but we really try to focus on some long tail keywords, on some untapped markets. And in the markets that do have volume and that we both advertise on, we really hope that there is some kind of preferential treatment from Google AdWords, from Facebook ads and Bing ads, to see that when you are selling a product from a website that specifically sells just that product, the quality score and the relevancy scores will be higher. And then we won't necessarily have to compete with the same bids that Amazon pays, but Google sees the value that we provide by sending someone to a website that is focused on that specific product and might have some, we can still get away with lower cost per clicks and still get a good amount of traction.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I'm pretty sure if Jeff Bezos is listening to this, he's going to come up with a way to counter that strategy. But Christelle, you've got another question?
Yes. Is PPC enough, or do I need to do any other additional type of marketing?
You should absolutely do other types of marketing. The reason I say that is because, again, PPC is just one piece. PPC is a great source of traffic to your website. First of all, it's generally important. It's even more important when you're dealing with high ticket items. There's a very low likelihood that someone is going to come in from our PPC ad. If you, let's say, run a company that sells, if you're a company that sells furniture, high ticket items, $3,000 or $4,000 sofas, it's very unlikely that a user will click on our ad and immediately make a purchase. There's a long process here where people need to think things through, and in many cases, an email marketing campaign is necessary. Some solid organic traffic is necessary. Good social media management is necessary. You have to have several touch points to convince someone to make a purchase. Again, PPC is a fantastic way to do the initial, is a great initial source of introduction. In many cases, on low ticket items, we're able to see direct conversions. But we do know, again, high ticket items, ambiguous products, products that have a lot of competition around them, there's going to need to be other sources of traffic that bring these users into the website.
Makes sense. And I have one last one, and sorry. Someone heard about lookalike campaigns. What can you explain quickly what it is, please?
Sure. So a lookalike audience is when you provide a system like Facebook ads a sample of your An example of your ideal audience. So let's say you can provide a list of people who have already purchased your product, give it to Facebook and said, hey, I want to find people who have similar behavior patterns as my former purchasers. And Facebook and Google and several other platforms do a very good job at finding users who have similar behavior patterns, and they tend to convert quite well. We have other, at the way that we work, we have other types of strategies that go beyond lookalike audience to make things even more granular and targeted. But this is a really good start.
Thank you.
So tell me, some companies have managed to really break the mold on this, and use this pivot to digital to basically not have brick and mortar assets. What Zappos is one, or an even funnier one is the sorry, I'm blanking out on the name, the eyeglass company, Warby Parker, that started out online and then started opening a few brick and mortar outlets, but which are mostly sort of promo, flagship type things. How big can you grow if you're, say you're a manufacturer and you want to get an online and you just grow your online presence? Are there limits to this kind of thing that you can do, or do you really have to retool your whole operation?
So look, first of all, I think there's the online space, especially right now with COVID, is limitless. I mean, we saw in March and April that there was a surge of online shopping and people bought a lot of things. Furthermore, we saw a lot of companies like J.Crew, for example. J.Crew is, from an e-commerce perspective, a great company. They're profitable. They make a lot of money. What's the problem? When Corona happened and they had to pay their commercial real estate rent, they realized, shit, we can't actually pay this with the money that we're making off of e-commerce. And so we know how the story proceeded. They filed for Chapter 11. We don't know what will happen with a company like J.Crew. But what we do know is that, and I don't know what the right way to go about this is, but I do believe that more and more companies will focus on being on e-commerce because the overhead of keeping a physical store is just too high. And there's very little interest today from consumers to actually physically go to stores. E-commerce makes things a lot more profitable. It makes things simpler. By the way, I do hope that they can take, one of my, there's kind of a social responsibility here. When you're closing a store, you're also making some jobs redundant. And I hope that with the increase of e-commerce sales, those jobs can be shifted into, let's say, warehouse management or shipping and logistics or something like that can still provide jobs around it. And I do believe that if J.Crew, for example, would have put a lot of its focus and money into the e-commerce space and expanding, they would be able to provide more and more jobs in logistics and shipping.
That's really interesting. So your feeling is that as we get slowly back to normal, if we ever do, that this trend towards the online shopping is going to, it's not just a passing fad, that this is going to be a permanent sea change in the way people go about doing their commerce.
Yeah, I think I think people are much more open to that. I'm personally more open to buying clothes online, and I think that also with time, as we have more and more accurate ways to measure what will fit us and what won't, through our computer, we won't need to send as many things back, less of a carbon footprint. A lot of things will slowly improve with this whole e-commerce situation. A lot of the fears that people have from buying things online will slowly go away, and people, a large chunk of consumers will move towards online.
So the Zappos effect of, I forget the exact number, it's something like for every pair of shoes they sell, 4 or 5 are returned. It's kind of amazing. In fact, buying shoes for our kids right now, there isn't a single pair that's come in a fresh box. They're not worn, but it's clear that, the last couple of shipments, everything that, we've bought has been, tried on and returned, and, we've done the same thing. So
yeah, I think I think first of all, some companies will try to responsibly find a way. I mean, even if you look at Amazon, I know we're moving into a different subject here, but today Amazon is pushing people that when they send products out, they're going to try to send it in less boxes, send more of your products all in one. And you might also have to wait for a little bit longer. And I think that's our responsibility to maybe wait another 2-3 days to make sure that we get our 6-7 items in one box through one shipment.
Yeah.
I think even the return process, again, when it comes to Zappos, I'm sure these companies through tech will find a better way to find something that will fit your kids on the first try without you having to send it back.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We had somebody on last week who talked to us about quantum computing and all these kind of logistic problems, fitting problems with a quantum computer can track, instead of doing, trying every possible combination one after the other, can try them all at once and
Sure.
solve
Yeah.
these kind of issues instantly. It's going to be fascinating. Christelle, you have a last question, and then we'll remind the viewers that if they have stayed with us this far, have shared this or commented online, they will be eligible to be picked by Christelle for a free half-hour consultation with Gal. 2 winners will be selected at the end of this program, so stay with us until your names are announced, or not.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, we have one question. Someone was blocked by Facebook, and it was apparently impossible to know why. Can you or a company like maybe you or us can help with that?
Within reason. So we can help because we know people at Facebook who can help us. We don't want to promise anything I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver here, but we can definitely help further investigate it more than the average consumer on Facebook. Again, keep in mind that especially after Cambridge Analytica and some of the scandals that happened with Facebook, a lot of industries, a lot of language are being let's say this, the policies in Facebook are becoming very, very strict in what you can and can't run. And sometimes we speak to prospects who tell us, well, I don't know what I did wrong here, but they're just an industry that they might find is innocent, not very problematic, but Facebook finds it's problematic. We can help resolve some of these issues, again, within reason.
Wow. Well, I think we're really, those are some very valuable insights into how I think all businesses are going to be coping with this post-COVID era. I mean, we're definitely seeing, as I said, with the mask on, because we have no idea where this is really going, if we're going to get second waves, which it looks like it's happening, or first waves in places that haven't had them yet, that this whole rethinking, repivoting, reorienting yourself in this COVID-19 era is here to stay for the foreseeable future. So lots of valuable insights. Thank you very much, Gal. And stick around, Christelle. Who are our winners? The envelope, please.
Oh, sorry, Peter. We are going to contact people in private messages about the offer. Yes, we cannot do it live. Sorry.
So nobody will be shamed or congratulated on screen, but thank you all for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time with another episode of PentaLive from Pentalog, and what we call DEF CON 19, or how to cope with and thrive in the era of COVID-19. Thanks very much for joining us, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.